Love is such an important thing, to be honest. Like, it does make the world go round. And when, like, I feel like it's a fundamental human need to be loved. And when things are loved right, they really flourish, don't they? Like, you just like, you see people in love and they just glow. And it's about not giving up on yourself, because we can have anything, but everybody has different sticking points and different blocks around different areas. So somebody might be love, somebody might be money. Do you know what I mean? So it's about releasing your limitations and like not giving up on yourself. So it's fighting for yourself, really going, no, I'm going to keep the faith, but I'm going to do what's necessary, and also create that self-awareness. If the same thing keeps showing up, you've got to be like, maybe I'm the common denominator and I might need to do some work around it.
Nice. Have you, with your clients, have you found any common denominators that's like throughout every person?
Yeah, I feel obviously everybody is an individual, but
Yeah.
there's definitely like running things, and there's lots of different parts of it. A lot of it is about, at the core of most people is like some kind of like not enoughness. They don't feel enough, and quite often they would have, only really they wouldn't have received that sort of like unconditional love. They might have had, it might have been like having to earn love a little bit, or love was given, or like a praise was given for their achievements. So they weren't just sort of showered with it and like, you're just worthy of love just because you exist. So it's that kind of really shapes them, like our attachment styles and stuff when we're young, and the attachment styles from when we're young, that plays out later on.
Yeah, for
Does that
sure.
make sense?
It does, because I do think I did a video before and we kind of explored how your attachment styles can be identified so well in dating, but actually they sort of show up in like your work, how you treat
Yeah, yeah.
how you like feed yourself, clothe yourself, things like
Yeah.
that. So I think that's like a really cool concept to really find out about yourself.
Definitely with, I think it's, because I mainly work with like sort of quite high achieving women. They're used to having to do. They're like very used to sort of being in quite male environments, or they can make stuff happen. And also they're used to probably taking care of themselves, because if they didn't, like, who did, sort of, yeah. So they end up attracting men who need taking care of, but also they end up then getting in that masculine energy where they're they're in the doing and they're not receiving. So it's like getting the balance of the feminine and masculine energy within them and getting them out of like the work mode as well. That's really like, that shows up quite
Yeah, that's
prominently.
interesting actually. Yeah, getting
Yeah.
them out of the work mode. That's a really cool concept. How do you do that? Do you just try and
Like, I just literally like, I just stop them from trying to control the situation. It's like, it's with those sort of, obviously they have the coaching, but with the higher level they have full WhatsApp supports, which is really good. So they can check in with me when they're like, if they've just had a date and they're wanting to message too quickly, for instance, as an example, I'm like, no, just don't, like, give it time. You have to let them.
Hey girlies, just a quick one. I am building an exceptional community and I want you to be a part of it. Comment a love heart down below and I'll get you started. Continue enjoying this amazing interview.
The less you do, the quicker you get to see what you're getting. So it's not about like, playing games or anything like that. But a man does like a bit of a chase, like men do. That's just the thing. And so if you don't do anything, if they're not interested, they're going to show you quite quickly. And if they are interested, you're giving them a chance to show you, to like secure the next date, to plan things, rather than you feeling like, oh, I'm feeling a bit panicky and a bit anxious, so I'm just going to jump in there and like ruin it all, basically. So they're like, okay, I'm just going to sit on my hands. Obviously, there's times when I'm like, no, actually, it'd be cool to send a message, like, and you keep it like in this context. So it's just teaching them that, because they want to really control and manipulate the situation to feel safe. Probably because it's like when they're controlled, they feel safe, but then they're sabotaging themselves. So it's just kind of like holding them back, and also letting them get into more of that receiving energy where they can do less and actually receive more. And also they don't waste their time. When they jump in and controlled it, they're not wasting their time on somebody where it's not actually going to go anywhere with. They get to see the person quite quickly. The wrong ones fall away really quick then. So it's very time saving too.
Nice. And I can imagine overachiever really appreciates time saving. I think we all do, but even more though. Um, so when the kids come in, family and the parents, yeah, that's fun. You mentioned on your page about manifesting love.
Yeah.
Do you have any like cool rituals that you tell your clients?
Yeah. Well, we are all manifesting like all of the time anyway, like
Absolutely.
whether you're aware of it or not aware of it. And so it's starting first of all, I think the very basics is stopping all self-criticism, because that is like the biggest act of love, and we aren't even aware of how we speak to ourselves most of the time, you know, and you never speak to other people the way you speak to yourself. So starting with that, so it's becoming aware of your thoughts, because then when you're becoming aware of your thoughts, you can start to become intentional about what you're creating. So it's kind of helping them to become the intentional creator of their life, rather than like, oh, this is just happening to me. So then it's about getting in the energy of being in love, because we have to feel what we want before we actually get the thing, which is actually the hardest part. And when for people to stay certain when it before it's in front of them, without like, it's like, you know, planting a seed and then keep digging up, going, you know, like, why hasn't it bloomed? It's like you've just got to water it and nurture it and stay in that energy, rather than like, where's my stuff? Like, why isn't it here yet? You know, it's just so that's a good analogy of it. It gets them in the energy of being in love. And then the manifest, getting really clear on what you want as well. So I'm going to be covering a lot of this specific thing, like going diving deeper in the masterclass. But even really getting really clear on what you want, because people don't spend time sitting down really writing it out. And if you really write out in detail what you want, the universe is more likely going to deliver it to you, because it's much more powerful, like clear, rather than like you're just like, oh, why is nobody showing up for me? It's a bit vague, like, oh, I just want somebody a bit like this, but you're focusing on what you don't want, so you're bringing more of that to you. So you get really clear on what you want, so you can visualize it then. So like the qualities in a person that you want, for instance, like what qualities do you want them to have, and then have you got those qualities? Because if you haven't, you might have to do a bit of internal work around those things to call in someone like that. So we're all just energy, and it's about, I help them to become the vibrational match for the type of person that they want to attract. So it's changing behaviors, like we were saying there, like changing patterns, getting them in the energy of it before they have the thing. And I feel like what I do is, I actually, like, they're really lacking in self-love, and nobody's really taught people how to. It's bandaged around, but no, if you're not taught, you don't know how to. So I feel like I sort of like reparent them in a way, and I kind of love them until they love themselves. And once they filled themselves with love, that that same love comes back to them. They naturally call that in then. So it's like, you only attract somebody who values you and loves you, and uh you know, as much as what you do, and also working on the worthiness, because you can't attract something if you don't feel really worthy of it. And that always shows up as well. They're always, to start with, they can never say that they feel wholeheartedly worthy and deserving of a man who just loves them for them, who, you know, is going to love them and cherish them. So we kind of say, like, where are you on the scale of 1 to 10? Like, 1 being not worthy and 10 being the most, and they never know where, you know, to 10. So we work towards the 10, and then they start feeling it at every cell of their body, and they can say it without like choking, and then just,
No,
yeah. So all of these, like, yeah, hopefully that's helpful to you. But there's so many things we do.
it is. And how do you know when you said you sort of start to reparent them? Some of the things, like if you could say like the top three things, like what would be your like go-to actions for them?
Well, it's I suppose, like, when I say we parent them, it's kind of like teaching them things that like we really needed to know ourselves, and I had to do it on myself. And what you actually do become is you start to be your own parent, but it's getting them to see them. It's their self identity around love, as we do inner child work as well, because a lot of it is like reconnecting them to themselves, and giving them themselves the what we all have, some like emotional needs and things that we felt like we weren't met when we were younger. So I teach them to like give them those things to themselves. So again, they're like filling themselves back up, they're reparenting themselves, and also like they're learning to trust themselves again, because where they've abandoned them, like made poor decisions, like whether, you know, like let themselves be treated not very nicely,
Uh-huh.
like not had the boundaries they should have had with people. So they're kind of abandoning themselves for, like, you know, for a little bit of love, but like breadcrumbs or whatever, or, you know, like So it's changing all of that. So they do start to trust themselves again, and they start to trust their decisions again. And that's again because we've reconnected themselves to themselves, like reconnected them to themselves. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It sounds like, do you do any like nervous system work or like,
Yeah, I feel like it is all of these things. It is about calming their nervous system because they're
yeah,
exhausted and overwhelmed with it. So, and I really feel like I know myself when you really want something, you create a lot of resistance around it because you're like, do you actually get into that? Like, I'm going to make this happen energy, which just
we're
pushes
making
it
it
away.
happen today.
So I definitely teach them to like the art of surrendering and letting go, which again is like very feminine energy as well, because so you're not like, yeah, not blocking yourself. So all of the work we do, because they have me on WhatsApp as well through the whole, it's just knowing that I'm not doing this on my own. I feel completely supported. I haven't got to make any, like Lara's going to help me. I'm going to check in if I'm not sure about anything. And I don't like rescue them, but I help them tap into their own wisdom. So I'll like question them, do you think that's a good thing to do? But
Yeah.
and I'll like even down to crafting messages with them, so like they want to say something, they want to put a boundary in, but they don't want it to come across aggressive, and doing it in like a really healthy communication styles, that just makes them feel everything, like all of these things make them feel safe, and then their nervous system starts to react, and also they start to see themselves in a different way, and they become less attached to the needing energy. So that relaxes you too. But there's definitely having somebody by your side holding your hand. It's like, okay, I haven't got to do this. I can just relax a little bit. I haven't got to do this all by myself.
Yeah, and I think as well, once you're sharing something with someone, it only takes a couple of times and then you almost have your own answers just by
Yeah.
sharing out because you're not feeling it. It's almost like a logic. When you're telling somebody something, it's more logical in a
Yeah.
way that it's like there's still emotion behind it, but then that logic can still come back and answer it
Yeah, I
in
find
a
that with
way.
myself and with clients, it's quite often that, when I've had coaching and when I give coaching, it's when you're being coached, you'll be asked questions that you would never think to ask yourself, and
Nice.
not questions that your friends would, like, obviously coaches are trained specifically, know how to do that, and then so it's not always at the time. Sometimes like little bits, like sort of like bulb moments go off, but I found that as you go away and you process the whole session and the questions, and then that's when they have their epiphanies and their light bulb moments. Also in between the sessions. Also, I give them stuff to go away with and go, right, watch this, read this, have a look at that. So they've always got stuff to do, and it's just, yeah, it's just the pennies gradually dropping. Do you know what I mean? And the thoughts shifting.
And is there anything like different in terms of like how you feel about yourself in terms of say if a woman was going away and she was reading all like the healthy boundary stuff and everything like that, but they were still unable to like feel sexy or feel like really feminine or anything sort of along them lines, almost like the more superficial things. Do you give them anything to help with
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I think again, it's literally like I remember myself and I was like, oh, why do I keep on attracting this? And then I went into deep dive, and it is almost like doing the internal work, but it's almost like the way I see it is like reprogramming a computer as well. That's just been stuck
Yeah.
running on this old, thing, that's old program that is actually working against you, not even serving you. So if it's saying like really nice, talking to yourself, so talk to yourself in a way that you would want your ideal partner to treat yourself in the way you want your ideal partner. If that's bringing yourself a nice cup of tea in bed and just like saying nice things, you like what you tell yourself about yourself, you will believe, and you'll be true. It will be true. And the affirmations are actually really, really powerful. But it takes consistency, like with business or work. You've got to do some of the boring stuff daily and commit to that, because within 2 to 3 months, there's a point where you're saying these affirmations about yourself and you're like, I don't, you don't really believe it, but there's a point when you do it over and over again that you're like, they become your own. So it could be like, I'm beautiful and everybody loves me, or and also treating yourself in a really nice way, like self-love is like sort of nurturing yourself and doing nice things for yourself, and then dressing nicely and dressing feminine, and just like really taking care of yourself in all of those ways, but definitely the beliefs about yourself. And so it's a whole like identity shift as well.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually had, when I was like struggling a couple of years ago, lighting up my candles and writing out my affirmations was one of the most times that I felt so peaceful and like
Yeah.
and it was just so nice. It was like that tiny little bit of intentional giving to
Yeah.
myself that it just felt so nice. And it's probably one of my like what I would call it my magical moments.
Yeah,
If
because
I'm
when
not
you're
all
that's
the time.
because when you're, especially if you're feeling a bit like overwhelmed and exhausted from dating, or it's like, say for instance, I know myself, like with clients, if they've been like ghosted or something and their date was going to happen, it suddenly didn't happen or something. Like, it's having something nice planned for yourself that, okay, well, if that didn't happen, I'm going to do this, it's still going to have a beautiful evening. And it's almost like looking again, like when I say about reparenting, it's how would you treat your child? You know, if they were a bit sad and a bit down, you do really lovely things for them and make them feel really nice and say nice things to them and reassure them. So rather than going, oh my God, this like it's definitely you, there's something wrong with you, like what, getting caught up in
Yeah.
your head overthinking, it's actually doing the complete opposite and not making it a story up about yourself and just really treating yourself in a really, really nurturing, loving way. And that creates a softness as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think you know if you need comfort or you know if you need to do more. Like, for example, like going for a run or like snuggling on the sofa and watching a film. Like,
Yeah.
you really know which one
And
you
then, or
need.
you can do both, like sometimes it's like get the stress out of your system and then wrap yourself up. You like sometimes you need that physical release as well. But they're all acts of love, aren't they? So
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
A really good hack, by the way, for all of you guys watching, if you turn the shower like really hot, as like not too hot, obviously, but as hot as you can bear it, and then turn it as cold as possible, shocks the body in a really nice way to stop sort of ruminating and overthinking when you're then laid in bed or like laid
Yeah.
anything, because your body's had that like almost instant acceleration what you'd usually have if you went for a run or did
Yeah.
something like that. It like exhausts the body and it's obviously just so easy because it's
It's a real distraction as well, probably, isn't it? 'Cause you're like, whoa, stop the thoughts. Because
yeah from your body. You can just distract your body and do some crazy wild stuff in the shower. You'll be fine. Um, if women are feeling quite apprehensive about dating, what does your first conversation look like? Is
normally
it a scale
the
thing? Like
first the,
1 to
the first
10?
conversation, yeah, I suppose it's kind of like finding out where they are, where they want to be. There's all
Yeah.
definitely always tears, which is a good thing that, like because they're talking about a really emotional topic and they're being really vulnerable. They probably, do talk to your friends and family and things like, but not on the same level you took or somebody who's completely removed from their life. So all the things they've been bottling up, really the deepest fears and feelings like come out,
Yeah.
like for instance, like saying I felt like I never felt like I've ever been loved. Like it's just like, wow, how,
What was your experience with manifesting love, attracting the right partner? Because I think so often coaches become coaches after they've had
yeah.
their experience because they can see the massive difference.
It's a lived experience which you can empathize on a much deeper way, and also you've like done all the hard work to work out a way out of these situations and struggles. But yeah, I was about just before I turned 33. I was just had like bad relationship after bad relationship, some even like some quite controlling, quite scary relationships, healthy relationships, and they seem to just be getting worse. And I looked around me and my friends and my sister, they all had these like amazing men, like quality men. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, so, and I just was like, had my like F this moment where you get to be like, I'm enough. And I was like, I need someone to reprogram my brain. I need to go and get some help. I don't know why like this keeps happening. So I went for coaching and then I went on my own explorative journey of like just and focusing on myself. So you don't really focus on the other person so much. It was focused on myself and finding all these different tools and techniques and realizing the main issue was that I didn't love myself and I didn't feel worthy, and working on that sort of healing work and my beliefs about myself. And then within 3 months I met my husband and it was like, there you are. And it was just effortless and easy, everything that it was like soulmate connection. And it was just but that and also if I hadn't have done that work on myself, even when he did show up, I would have ruined it. So so doing that work was so great. And it also gave me a chance to put into practice like boundaries and, like all of those things with somebody, and putting all the different things into practice, and just making sure that because if you really value yourself, that other person will really value you as well. So yeah, and so I learned so much within that time, and then since then obviously continued to learn new things. So I bought all my other coaching tools, and from when I trained as a coach for a couple of years, brought that into it, all the powerful things that I found. And I'm very into obviously like the practical and the strategy, but also the metaphysical. So, and it is like it's a balance of everything. So, and I'm really like quite heavily into the metaphysical, because we're all just energy, and I think that's one thing we all come here to learn about, how to create with energy.
Do you think there's like a specific way how we can like tap more into like our feelings rather than like thinking? Do you think there's a way where you can tap into your like feelings, thinking about how your body feels when you're
Yeah, you
around?
do need to be more in your heart space rather than your head, because a lot of women really struggle with overthinking and
Yeah.
overanalyzing and going over conversations and stuff, and all that. This, like I say, that affects your nervous system. So it's definitely, obviously, like meditation is really good, like heart space meditation, but it's a really good technique that, because so many of us, and even if you want to be, you like want to be positive. So if you notice emotions coming up and you deem them as negative emotions like anger or fear or whatever, or sadness, you quite quickly go, oh, I want to be positive, and pushing them down. So actually a really, really good technique is the welcoming technique, which is you just acknowledge the feelings. So for instance, imagine it was sadness, and imagine sadness is a person standing in front of you, like an old friend that you haven't seen. And if you literally just wrap your arms around it and welcome it in, and it literally, like, the energy of that heaviness, of that emotion, just like disintegrates and moves through you, and you're not pushing it down, and it's not weighing on you. It just sort of, and the more and more we do that, because we've got years and years of like suppressed emotions, we keep releasing it until they're not really there anymore. So it's really, really powerful, and it just shifts the energy quite quickly.
Yeah, that does sound really powerful. I've never ever heard of anybody describing it as like another person that you can
Yeah.
hug. I think that's beautiful. I
And
love that
it's
so
just,
much.
it's a welcoming, because the thing is that so many people think that emotions are good or bad, but actually no emotions are bad, and your emotions are just there trying to tell you something. So when you acknowledge them and welcome them, they're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling heard and seen, and then it just goes. Yeah. And also you're dissolving it with love, rather than like, oh, don't want to feel you. Just
Yeah, like
pushing it
pushing it
down.
away. Yeah, I love that. Do you ever, or have you ever done that with like all of the really positive emotions? So when you've experienced joy, have
Yeah.
you also need to like hug it in a
I
way?
don't know. You know what? That's so interesting. I've never actually done that, but I might try that. I think
Yeah.
because when you're feeling happy, you like, oh, this is good. I'm just really happy. But
Yeah, you just like
actually,
feel your life.
welcoming it in, yeah. I think you might be worried that, oh, if I welcome it in, is it going to pass too quickly? Yeah. But no, anything that's like, it's still an act of love, isn't it? So I imagine it would just feel really nice. You'd probably just feel it a bit more, it'd be really lovely. I have to try.
Beautiful. Nice. So when you do, let me know. I might try it next time too. A little bit of a controversial standpoint, but why do you think most people are single?
Well, I do think it is harder these days, definitely, because there's just so much choice and it's so accessible.
Mm.
So, and also maybe because years and years ago, like women needed to be with a man, because like it was people would get married quite young, and houses would go on one person's wage, and women didn't really work. Whereas now women do work, and they've always worked, and so, and it gets to the point where they can afford to be by themselves. So I don't know if those things come into it or not. It's like a really interesting, but I think also then people don't need to settle. You don't want to be, years ago, people might have stayed in really unhappy marriages. So it's really good that people don't have to do that now, and there is choice. So yeah, I think there's must be a combination of lots of different things.
Nice. Cool.
I don't know.
Um,
I think it's all of those things really.
is it a huge question which
Yeah,
could
it's
go down so
huge.
many avenues? But I think that's nice when there's like the nuance, well, not so much of a nuance of like a huge question, and then all of these different like
Yeah. And you don't want
like
to, like, especially the women that I've worked with, don't need to be with somebody because they can easily take care of themselves, you know. But the whole point is that as much as they can, they would really like somebody to come along and be able to take care of himself as well as her, and not like attract like a man child that just because they're used to taking care of things, they'll attract somebody who needs caring and they don't get that same care. Everyone wants to feel loved and nurtured and taken care of. So it's not a case of needing it. It's just a case of like
It'd
you can
be
have all these
really,
successes, but you want to have somebody special to share those moments with, and someone
yeah.
who you can go on adventures with, and yeah, be a playmate.
Yeah, literally. It literally is though, isn't it? Do you get many male clients?
I don't, because I suppose because all it's really very clear on my social media that it's women, and especially when you're first, like, you know, in the baby stages, still like in the early stages of business, it is good to be very clear who you're speaking to, so that person knows that you're talking to them, and you just want to create, yeah, useful content for that person. But to be honest, like somebody asked me this yesterday, and I was like, yes, it is just for women. It would work for men what I teach them, because we're all human beings, and at the end of the day, it's the same work.
Yeah.
We all have the same feelings and emotions and fears, and yeah, so it would still work for men, but it is mainly just women that I work with.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful. Sounds great. Is there anything that you would like to share in terms of any techniques that you use with your clients?
Powerful question. It's the reprogramming of like their beliefs. There's shifting their self-identity, the manifestation work, which sort of we've covered a bit, like just some examples of how we get into the energy and how we know how we're going to attract that person. And feeling what you want to feel, and working on the worthiness and observability. It's all of those things, and also like anything to do with calming the nervous system. So they've got me by their side, but I also give them techniques and things like that as well when they're, you know, feeling overwhelmed. So it's such a mix of things.
In terms of like the self-identity, is there 2 or 3 questions that you think is most powerful?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there is. There is. I think it's just basically, for instance, that question that I asked earlier, that shows what their feelings are around love and their identity around love. You know, like, do you feel really worthy of being loved and cherished and chosen, you know, like in the way that, you know, wholeheartedly by somebody? That shows their identity around love, because it is the worthiness. And then it's also like when we do questions about their beliefs, you know, and it's kind of like feeling like you could ask, you know, you can say, well, what is wrong with you? And they'll go and go and go, and they'll keep going, and what else and what else and what else, because they think all these things are wrong with them. But at the bottom of it, like, is I don't feel so those, and then we start changing those narratives. And so once we find out what their fears are around love, then then we create the opposite of that. So it's flipping the narrative. So we have to like sort of dive deep into like what fears they have around love and dating and relationships. And even just asking the one question, like, what is your biggest fear to do with love? And that answer will just pop into their head straight away. You know, so yeah, we create all the fear, we create a list of fears, and then we flip them, and then we
Nice.
start reprogramming.
What was, if you don't mind sharing, what was your biggest fear around love when you first started?
I think I felt like I definitely felt like I had to earn love. And yeah, so, and definitely didn't feel like worthy of what I felt that I really wanted. So I had to work quite deep on those things, I think. Yeah. Yeah, just feeling like you really got to earn love, or so it's not just a given. You're not just loved because you're just existed, because you exist, and yeah.
Yeah. And do you help women that you work with sort of accept men as well? Because you know, like sometimes they're like, we want him to have X, Y, and Z, and da 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 da, da," which is perfect. In terms of getting clear on who you ideally want, but in terms of them, I don't know, maybe not having like a huge salary or a really big family. family or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's what's the really most what like is really what's a heart connection with somebody? What is the like, it's not always they've got to have a bigger house than you, or they've got to have a even flashier car than you, or all these things. It's like,
Yeah,
what are the things that you really do value? How do they show up for you? How do they support you? How, it's that the things that really matter are the things that aren't always like, you still want them to be able to, like, you're not taking care of them, but they could take care of you in other ways as well, but it's just when it's not all completely out, the dynamics are completely unbalanced. So it's finding out what means the most to them, definitely
yeah,
can dive in a little bit deeper with that, which is normally things with more depth.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's mostly emotional connection towards,
Security.
yeah. And
They all
just like,
say everyone just wants to be loved for them. So when you meet somebody, like when I met my husband, and it was like we both said the same thing. We're like, God, it's so nice somebody just like to love you as you are. Where like we always kind of change a little bit or try to, be what that other person wants you to be. And when you completely yourself, then like you go, oh, I just like I love you on your worst days as well as your best. Like it's you're perfect just as you are, and like no one's perfect, but it's finding somebody who's perfect for you. And when somebody just loves you and sees you for you and just gets you, it's just like the best.
yeah, for sure. And I think as well, when you start feeling that with your significant other, you then kind of take that mask off at like
Yeah.
work, family,
Yes.
all of these. Like, I think love with your partner can be so healing in like
It's
so many other
so
different.
healing. Yeah, you are. I definitely think because sometimes women will go, oh, well, I'm just going to work on, just going to get the next pyros or just do this next thing with work, or because they're like avoiding dealing with the love situation. So they might like overwork and stuff. But actually, it's so amazing to just work on the thing that you really, really want. And when you're being supported, you're not having to do it by yourself. So it's not so scary, because then when you get that love, and you're loved right, and you get that and you've also released all these limitations and tendencies that have been holding you back. Every area of your life gets better. Even work, it all gets better. Has like a knock-on
Yeah,
effect.
yeah. Do you have any like fun success stories of some of your clients? Like you met
Yes.
your husband 3 months.
Yeah, my
Like
my
that
last
is
client, my
unbelievable.
last client, same thing. Like, so I only created my program at the end of last year, like specifically with bringing everything together. And I was like, I know this works, but then it's like bringing somebody in and doing it with them. And yeah, the first client I took through there, she said she very successful woman, 40, like 46 or something like that. She had two children, she'd been previously married, but had quite a toxic, it was quite a long relationship, quite a toxic relationship. And she said she'd never felt she's ever been loved in her whole life. And then we did all of these things that discussed today. And there was some times in between she was getting ghosted and stuff, but I was holding her back, like, changing how she saw things. We were just focusing on bringing the focus back to her and what the work that we were doing. And then before the end of the 12 weeks, there was a point where she literally said, oh my God, I wholeheartedly feel worthy. And all the affirmations and all the other work we've done and all the beliefs had shifted. And I could see that she felt it. And very quickly after that, this man showed up on one of the dating apps. He was a lawyer, really successful in his own right. And they went on nice dates. He planned the dates. He showed up for her. He let her feel certain. He secured the next date. And on their fifth date, he asked her to be his girlfriend. But it wasn't love bombing. It was just safe and secure and just showing up and leading, and it was really, really lovely. And they've been together like a few months now, and they said, I love you. They've met families, and she just said, like, thank you, like, thank you, you've just changed my life. I could not have done this without you. And that is just like, it makes me have that impact on somebody's life. So even when you're really intelligent and you're really successful, you've done more than most people have done, we don't know everything, and so but she showed up and she fully put her trust in me, and she committed to it, and she did the work as well. So they've got to do it as well. But yeah, so that was also like within 3 months.
Wow, yeah. I love that. That is so amazing. And I love that the fact that the point that she started to really feel it within herself is when she was able to it
Exactly,
actually
you
came.
call it in. That's what I'm saying about is like magnetizing it in and becoming like, the right vibrational match for what you want. And so, but it's
Yeah.
all of bringing all of these different things together.
Uh-huh. And I love the point where you said like he planned the date, he like followed up with her and things like that. What in your opinion is like the worst? What would you be like advising maybe not to go on a date with somebody if they like hadn't planned a date, for example? They just set a time or whatever. Like, is there any red flags where
Yeah, because
not like you're not saying don't go, but
yeah, I mean,
don't go?
even like probably even from probably like the first kind of messages, you can kind of tell. I think it was like a low effort message, like "Hey,"
Yeah.
something like that, and you can't even bother to
Uh-huh.
put anything into it. And you can just tell by somebody, yeah, if they say like if they ask you out on a date, and I think that it's good for them to ask you, and if they then they just sort of say they make suggestions. They don't just leave it to you, because if they're leaving it to you on the first date, you're like, well, I mean, it might be all right. They might just feel a bit shy, but I would say that that would be something to look out for, because a man who knows how to lead, like, will just make nice suggestions and want to do that, like that old-fashioned kind of dating and chivalry, and yeah, just taking the lead a little bit, not expecting you to lead.
Yeah. And what's some like really nice first messages that a woman can send to a man to open up a conversation? Beyond just like, hey, I think your shirt looks nice. Like, is there some
I
really
don't know.
nice, like,
Yeah, I've not actually discussed this with like that's I should really maybe sort of work on creating some scripts for that, because I think that would be really nice. Because if you do see come across say somebody who's on the dating app, you wouldn't necessarily want to miss that opportunity,
yeah,
because they might not come across you, Joey. So it's, but what I do think is that it's the dating algorithms are very much like the algorithms like in any other sort of platforms, and I feel like we're on all our own algorithm, so which is energy. So I do feel like when we change our energy within, like, start showing up, like my client said, like so much better quality men. She'd had a couple of much better dates before that, but it still wasn't quite right. And then he showed up and it was just right, and she just didn't just go, oh, this will do, so it's getting you on the right algorithm yourself to be able to just naturally attract these much better quality partners, much better quality dates.
yeah.
Does that make
Nice.
sense?
It does make sense. I just think that like online dating is sometimes a bit funny. Like I've definitely had that experience where I felt something towards another person before I had even like matched them or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I just felt something. And then I've had times where I'm being so judgmental on their appearance that I just wouldn't even give them a second look. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's like healthy, unhealthy, if that's just like being a human, or if I'm like, no, he looks unhygienic. Like,
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's kind of because you like, like somebody might not be drop dead gorgeous. They could be drop dead gorgeous and literally be so dull and have like no chat
uh,
and no depth to them. But then they could be like maybe not like really really gorgeous, but like you don't know until you meet up with them, because they could have, if they've got an amazing personality and they really make you laugh, and that becomes so attractive. But I feel like
yeah,
you do need to trust your gut instincts. Sometimes people, like I said, they'll give someone a chance, but they really knew to begin with, like they just had to try and talk themselves into it. It was like, well, maybe he's all right. Maybe he like, so it's a balance of not being like too superficial, being open, and just even if you just see what the quality of the chat's like quite quickly, then you could be like, oh, well, even if I go on a nice date with this, I'll have a nice time with this person, even if there isn't a chemistry, because you don't know until you meet up with them, but you know that
yeah,
they've got depth, they're funny, they're engaging, you're having a nice time talking to them online. You'll be able to have a good time in real life. And what I used to do was also I'd have a conversation on the phone with them before meeting up with them, because I think if you can talk on the phone, it's going to be, you're going to have a nice conversation when you meet up, and you just never know. So those things, give it away a little bit, or in the early stages, whether you even get to the point of meet, and also them asking to meet up, because a lot of women say that they find that a lot of guys don't, the messaging goes on for too long, and they're not just turning up and going, should we go on a date? And cutting to the chase, because you don't know until you meet up with them. And that's what, like, well, I think with somebody quite secure in themselves who knows what they want and is like, leading, will secure that date quite quickly and be engaging with their conversation.
Yeah, because I think if they're like hanging you on by like a thread, so to speak,
Yeah.
you kind of option like somebody else has already got
Yeah.
that date.
Yeah.
And you're almost back up, and
Yeah.
it sounds horrible, but that's, I think, what the
Because
truth.
if they're really interested, they're going to show you, they're going to let you know. You're not going to have to wonder, and it's not going to be like sort of like drip feeding or, like dragging it out.
Yeah, literally. And as well, like they have to be ready to date and want that
Yeah.
sort of experience for themselves too.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the time it's genuinely got nothing to do with the other person, I don't think. I think
No.
it's always got so much to do with how they're feeling about themselves. And if you're both ready, then it'll
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
win.
That's like if it aligns, you're both wanting the same thing. And when you said that's how they're feeling about themselves. This is why it's so important to do the internal work on yourself, because I truly believe you'll only ever, and from my lived experience, you only ever attract somebody who's as happy or as unhappy as you are. So
Yeah.
again, it's not like, it's never outside ourselves. Actually, like, and too many people are looking the wrong way. It's just like, go within and keep working on yourself and make sure you become the happiest, healthiest, like, version of yourself, and you've released anything that's been weighing you down and holding you back, because then you'll attract somebody who's done the work on themselves too, and is equally as happy as what you are and secure as what you are. And that's why it's good to work through the attachment styles and come away from anxious, for instance, having an anxious attachment style to being secure, because the more secure you becoming yourself, the more secure person you'll also attract.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. And I think that is so key to work on your own attachment styles always, because as you said, it just constantly repeats everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Relationships are quite, I feel like they're,
It's
even a
such a
difficult one.
mirror, I think.
Yes, so it's always a mirror. It's a mirrorverse. You've just got to think, even if something difficult's happened or something upsetting's happened, it's an opportunity to go, okay, why is this showing up for me, or why has this happened? I need to look at this. Yeah. And then you heal it, and then, or when you change your patterns, then the universe won't give you those same it kind of tests you to be like, okay, have you learnt your lesson? And when you've learnt your lesson, it
Yeah.
doesn't give it to you again. You like move on to it. So, okay, right, you can have that now.
Yeah, no, I've actually experienced that quite a few times as well. And it's been nice because then it just becomes no question. I feel like you then get to a point where you don't even see it. It's only when you like sit back and reflect where you're like,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah,
me a year
definitely.
ago would have like responded in this way and I didn't even see it until
That's when you
now.
can tell you've
Oh,
healed, because you're coming from a place where you can respond without reacting as well. So becoming less reactive.
how do women really stop, like keep their cool, but not sort of go into that like friend zone, like still say that you're interested, but not be like, and like go straight into it, you know?
They're trying to let somebody know that you're interested without
Interested
getting into the
without
friend
being,
zone.
yeah, so say, yeah, so like you want to like play it cool and casual, not cool and casual, but like you don't want to seem like you don't want to be serving your anxiousness by like going all in and being like, I need
Yeah.
clarity on what this is, I need it now, but also you don't want to be like two step back. Like, do you think there's like a happy medium
No,
that some
obviously, like, you can let somebody sort of like know in subtle ways, I'm sure, like, that if you know that you are interested, but you need to gauge if you're getting that back as well, because if you're not getting it back, then it's like you can't really make something happen, and the more you try to force it, then it just sort of like, it could push it away. So I suppose it's testing the waters a little bit, but just also being observant of what they are saying back to you or what they are showing you. Because if a man's really interested, you're not going, again, I just think that if they're really interested, you're not going to have to wonder, but they might just be a bit shy, so you can give them, give them a little bit of like, show that you're interested. Yeah, give them a little bit without being too much, and then just sort of test it, like, not going in too hard, and just observe how they respond to it.
Lovely. Why do you think somebody should start trying to find their love today?
I think know when you're ready, but I just feel that, like I said, love is a fundamental human need, and like everybody, I just believe that everybody wants to be loved, and everybody wants to be loved for them. So, and your relationships, you can see if you need this to do any work around it or not, because if you look at your past relationships, this is why I always say when I'm working with women, what I really do is heal the relationship they have with themselves, because
Yeah.
once I've done that with them, all the good comes, all the good shows up. So it's like if you look back at all your past relationships, you can see, depending on how good or bad they were, what your relationship was like with yourself at that time. So you can how happy you are in yourself and how like fulfilled, and what everybody really wants is wholeness. So that's what we kind of work on, them like feeling that wholeness, not feeling like there's a void or a part of them missing. So yeah, and when you do that, then you just fill yourself up with love, and you just get more love, yeah, so, and try and give love as you go about your daily life. Just, you know, every interaction you have, just like give some love in whatever way you can. You know, it just helps get you more and more in that energy.
And then I think as well, when you then find out more about your own love language, I don't know if you do that in your coaching, but when you feel so much happiness from giving somebody else a certain kind of love, that's
Yeah.
when I think you really figure out what your love language
Yeah, yeah,
is.
because
Because you might think,
everyone's different, aren't they?
yeah, but it might actually be like acts of service because you experience so much joy by giving. Well,
Yeah, just I think even just giving kind like words, noticing how somebody is, or like giving them a compliment, or just doing something that you know is going to like their day's better because they've come into contact with you.
really like that. That's so beautiful. Okay, Lara, I've had such an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
I hope you have as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, I'll send you over the video and I hope you have a beautiful day.
Thanks, In. Thanks so much. Bye.